Alright, so here we are in Wilson's Creek. This is the 8 a.m. turn. We had the Confederates going on a full push here against Siegel and the artillery there. They want to wipe it out so they can push Price back, maybe use some lighter forces to try to defend that rear area, Ray House, whatever. The rest of the line is trying to reform again, trying to pull all the artillery up to help support that and stiffen it. Not lose Sharp's house or not lose it so they can't get it back is basically the feeling at this point. And you can see, although there's weakness here that we've seen in terms of after the fire, the forces here are actually outnumbering whoever this is, Andrews' command. Anyway, I haven't rolled the fire yet. This is just the movement. It's kind of interesting to look at the battle as it's intended to go, and then take another look afterwards after the firing's done. Alright, there's something I forgot about this system that maybe affected things, maybe not, but I'll start playing with it. There's a limit to the amount of fire points you can pump out through every hex side in this. And just for infantry and cav fire. But it's 4 strength points, and some of these units have more than 4 strength points of firepower. It creates kind of a weird situation where you have, okay, 4 of the strength points are going to fire out this hex side. Then the other one could fire out another one, but that increases the risks of ammo reduction. So, in general, a 4 strength point unit is as big as you should have. I've done a couple of shots where these 5-point units have fired, and I think they're just Union units, have fired on that larger table, but I don't think it's going to have too big an effect. I'll play it correctly from now on. I wanted to show this mainly because of the disruptive and strong sense that the Confederate attack is, and they pushed one unit back, pinned another. They didn't go in for the melee there, which might have captured them guns, but I think with the ford they were at even attacking it, it just didn't seem worthwhile. Over here, sort of mixed effect. They did a melee and this cav retreated, but I think I didn't retreat it enough. No, it's allowed 1 or 2 hexes. They're fine with where they went. It had to undergo withdrawal fire for that, but it was greatly outnumbered, and they want to keep a decent amount on the line. The Union's going to probably have to push a little harder. Taking Sharp's house, it looks like it's open right now, but that means they have to undergo a little bit of firepower before they go in. Okay, well, I just ended the Union side of the turn. We're going to move into 820. And, well, you can see the Union pressed forward. What we're seeing in some cases is attacks. This system has a repulse result for the melee combat, which is also new from the Terrible Swift Sword version, and from most systems I've seen, where you just, you didn't succeed, you didn't win, no casualties were handed, but it's not an engaged result. You get pushed back, you have to make a morale check as the attacker. And we had a couple instances of that here and down here. These guys are ammo depleted. This whole end of the line for the Union is, and that's going to change the dynamic significantly because, well, they charge forward and they declare they're going to do a melee, and the Confederates just wander back. They don't have to take withdrawal fire, so there's no risk. They really can't get caught without guys who have firepower. Up here, they managed to pin a number of Confederate units, and there's actually some Union pin there that shouldn't be anymore. The rally phase has already happened. But where they went in, they got repulsed, and they don't terribly want to engage these units in melee necessarily, especially if they have the advantage. In this case, I believe the Confederates are out of ammo, and the strength is about equal. Over here, Siegel's trying to rescue his guns here. Everything got driven off there except them, and they're likely to just fall. They were pinned under fire and unable to do anything. Whatever. Alright. After the Confederate side of the turn, you can see Sigel's position is just becoming more and more untenable. Those guns finally were captured. We got some big capture numbers up here, 6 for the Union captures, 7 for the Confederates. Over here, the Confederates still look like they're holding the line barely. We'll see. Another Union turn, it may change, because melee is chosen by the person whose side of the turn it is. These forces pushed forward against the ammo depleted units. Now they got to worry, because when they get attacks against them, they're going to have to fall back against the melee, just because it doesn't help them to take those melee attacks if they're anywhere near even. A couple routed units, but for the most part, most of the independents, even Price's independents, are slithering upward to Sharp's Cornfield. My feeling is that Price is going to resolve his issue. Of course, Sigel wants to get out of there instead, though. One thing I forgot to mention, the Confederates are comfortable enough with Sigel. They're streaming the supply train down here towards Ray's cornfield, Gibson's mill here. Just get it away from the stuff that might actually break through, and closer to things that can protect it if that happens. Okay, we push this to the 840 turn. I haven't rallied my Union forces yet. Oh well. I can start taking care of that. But essentially, nothing's routed. It's just some pin markers. One place in the center, we saw some forces engaged in melee. One of the results, and this is from the original system as well, is when you roll on there, you can get an engaged result. That allows your opponent to throw more troops in if there's room and refight the battle. Your opponent also has, I believe, the option to withdraw. I have to look that up to see if that's the case. But it's usually to their advantage to throw more in and try to crack it if you stood for it. Back here we saw some Confederates withdraw before melee and get shot up. And the units, we're beginning to see units disappearing here as the losses are mounting. Over here the Union surrounded this guy actually and declared a melee on him. He ran through an enemy unit, or through another Confederate unit, and ended up back here. Didn't disrupt the other unit, but he himself was routed, pushing through. Actually, maybe he took the routed unit, I don't know. I don't know what happened, it doesn't look right. Oh well. Anyway, Confederate pin markers aren't going to go away, so the Union gets to fire back where there are Confederate pins here. But we can see Price is going... Sigel's going to try to lead him on a chase, keep him out of the fight as long as possible. That'll give the Union a chance to break McCulloch's line, but I don't know. I don't know how likely that is, but certainly if Price could throw his forces up there, he could probably stop that Union advance in its tracks at this point. Okay, the Confederates continue their pursuit of Sigel. They've sent the 3rd Missouri flying. There's still this unit here. They've got to wipe them out, basically, to feel safe. And they can't just leave, they can't detach a unit. My understanding in this scenario is there's no detachments except Sigel allowed. Over here we see Pierce becoming more and more ragged as he's pushing his attack here. The defensive line here is pretty much shot. You expect the Union to charge forward, try to take those guns. They're going to pay to do so. But the problem is, to do so, they'd be exposing the flank here. And it's just kind of this tricky position where somehow Pierce's shattered line seems to have the advantage. Over here, though, it's largely not the case. The Union's driven most of the Confederates away, although Ben McCulloch charged up the hill and joined that engaged battle, giving him a total of a +1 bonus. He captured 100 men, drove them back here. They're all routed. And, so there's a slight bright spot there. But basically, while we wait for Sigel to diddle around, or, for Price to diddle around chasing Sigel, we got a real issue. And he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Going to be out of range of this command, too. I don't think I want to make that advance. I made an advance after the melee. I could do it with everyone but the leader. And that'll solve the problem. Okay, anyway. that's where we stand. It doesn't look like the Confederates are going to be able to take Sharp's house back anytime soon. I don't know how this is going to collapse. Some of these routing guys, they've recovered. We got them back here. They just keep sending more into the line, getting them flung back because they're such poor quality. And as we hit 9 a.m., where McCulloch charged was not the safest place in the world. There's 2 artillery batteries under here. They just swung into play and fired a bunch of grape in there. Killed 1 unit. McCulloch retreated with the routing units, but somebody actually stuck around. Over here things are kind of interesting. The Confederate guns have fallen here. Pierce is still forming up his line and trying to fight, but he's having a hard time there. Really looks like the Confederate line up here in the south is beginning to crumble completely. On the other hand, Price is still chasing Sigel, and he doesn't have much he could do. He could maybe swap in and out and pull some of those independents down or something. Because Sigel can't do a lot of damage, but we got to keep him from Ray House, and we got to keep him from the train. Well, the Confederates continue their pursuit of Sigel. The reason is there's not enough time left in the game for them to turn around and be effective in the south. And then over here, they're actually kind of stiffening a little bit. They made a couple of melee attacks that were successful, and we're seeing capture rates are both up around 10. Well, at 10. I'm guessing, just by the nature of this game and what I remember of it, the Union has to do really well to win this one, and I think they're probably going to come away with a loss. Look at these exclusive rolls, and you know, the Union needs 30 points to reach marginal victory, and yes, they have a slight advantage on the terrain points perhaps, but not being able to get both of them, I don't think they're going to break it. I think this is going to be probably a slight Confederate victory. Now to 9:20, and well, here it's just a lost cause. I mean, Sigel is going to get away, but Price can't stop pursuing him. He could stop pursuing and set up a defensive line, but that's not going to help at all. So you might as well keep pushing him forward or back or whatever. But over here, we're seeing such a mixed sign of things. So the Union charged into here and just drove those units back, drove the gun crew back, so now those guns are exposed. But there's been a lot of damage being done in kind of the center right wing or of the Union force, as well as on their extreme left. They've been driven back. This is a muddled mess that it's not clear one side or the other has the advantage. The Union troops should be better, and they should have more force there, but the rebels are holding out pretty well, actually. Well, the Confederates are trying to stream up here along that left flank of the Union force, and they're trying to overpower here, but they got an important ammo depletion there. They don't want to launch melee attacks. This guy was pinned, so they didn't have any numerical advantage. They also kind of screwed up by leaving Pierce behind. He would have been useful in those. Their artillery is beginning to run down. They've got a half crew gun here. That may not be legal. That's not the gun crew for those guns. I seem to remember that's not legitimate, but it always kind of bugged me. It seems like a gun crew could be put in charge of a different set of guns fairly easily. Now, maybe in the Civil War things were a little different, but certainly in other eras, people grabbed guns and started using them quite regularly. And none too far from the Civil War, we're talking about the Alamo here, we certainly saw that as well. Union line, trying desperately to hold at Sharp's house. If they lose that, it's definitely over, I think. Alright, only 2 more turns to go here, and, well, Sigel turned around like a wolf in a cave and just ripped into Parsons' unit here, destroyed it. There was only one strength point there to begin with, actually. A weak unit, but it was a little ahead and it was easy to hit. Now, this opens up an opportunity for the Confederates to engage with Sigel again. But he's got a little bit of a difficult terrain up here that they might have trouble coming through. They've got units in column. They weren't ready for this, and now they have to face it. Over here, the Confederates continuing to push across here. Some of the Union guns are out of ammo and are pulling back. They drove a couple of units back. The artillery fired on them. But, let's see, we had some melees here. This one got repulsed, but this one broke through and smacked a unit past Pierce, just running by. Took him for a little bit of a walk. Just basically keeping the command radius in the same area. But this is kind of a mess. Everything here is kind of a mess, to tell you the truth. And the Union's just hoping to hold on to Sharp's house at this point. And maybe not do badly casualty-wise. I wanted to peek at this for a moment because of the dramatic scope of what the Confederates are trying to do. First of all, with Sigel out here, they were able to swarm in on him, and he's engaged again. But over here we've got repeated melee attempts, etc., which is trying to clear this side of things. And here they're swarming across the embankment, coming up behind the guns, charging here, coming up behind these guys. They're going to take Sharp's house too, it looks like. We'll see whether or not that falters, gets blown back, but this is not an assault against something that can turn it back easily. The Union line mostly broke, and you can see the fact that they're run back here means that. Now, all of this charging means poor Pierce's routed unit was left behind. It's the only routed unit left, actually. McCulloch, with his humongous command range, runs around, and he's going to try to rally. He can't do it this turn, but next turn, perhaps, for whatever it's worth. Okay, so the Confederates seem to be winning the day here. Pierce has chased the Andrews' force off. Actually, we have a loss here. Andrews himself was captured. I marked a couple extra points in the capture pile for that, just because if he was killed, he's worth 3. If he's captured, he's worth 5. Up here, the Union managed to drive off some of the Confederate attackers, but we've got a big melee going on here, close to even. 1 point advantage for the Confederates, I think. And I guess that's about it. And here, as we hit 10 a.m., and the battle, I think, if I recall correctly, now I don't have the historical notes on it that came with the magazine. The magazine's back at my mom's house, actually. It gets called because of heat. And that would make sense. This is Missouri in August. You know, you fight in the early morning and maybe at dusk. Yeah, gotta go to sleep during the day if you can. No, seriously, I mean, it probably was hot and muggy and unpleasant as hell. Anyway, it's looking really, really bad for the Union. Question is whether they can hold Sharp's house at all. This engaged melee is continuing. I threw Dieter or whatever in, Dietzler, in order to bring it to even. And that's kind of a risky move. And now Dietzler's forces are kind of out of command too after that. So I was hoping to get out of there. That didn't happen. We'll see if the Confederates either fall out of there or end up winning it one way or another. Andrews' command is basically destroyed. One unit was routing, one unit and has not rallied. One unit is pretty weak. They're all out of ammo. Pierce has been chasing him. But Pierce is pulling his own command lines apart too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can only reach to that guy. He doesn't have a lot of units left either, though. We got kind of a little dead pile here. I'm not really looking forward to counting this up. Luckily, I have to work now, and I'm not going to be able to finish it before then, because that would leave this kind of jarring discontinuity. I kind of want to play the last turn and talk about it. All right. So the Confederates were repulsed from the main engagement here, the melee, and they charged into here, which may have been sort of a mistake. They drove away the Union forces, but ended up giving up Sharp's house, and that means that Dietzler can just pull back and gain the points for the Union. One of the kind of problems with these territorial point games, I would say nobody really owns it, but, well, it'll end up probably being scored for the Union at the end of the day just because they're in possession. Over here, the Confederates made the Union pay for their turning and fighting. They captured some cav and kind of positioned themselves in a way that's going to make it ugly for Sigel to pull his forces out safely. Now, that's really the end of the game. The Unions moved forward. They took Sharp's house, and largely you can see that they are facing down the Confederates. Here's the problem with the artificial end, though. Yes, the real battle probably ended around this time, and yes, there was a heat and exhaustion factor, but you kind of feel like there should be okay, no more pushing troops in, but things that are kind of unresolved should stay. So, for example, this situation here, these guys should be able to stay more or less in the fight until they are driven back, because withdrawing at this point would require that they take fire. These guys probably aren't going to push forward. The attack's been halted. Over here, there's engaged troops actually fighting a melee. None of that counts for the game. Minor quibble. Really, the battle is determined. If the old minis groups I used to game with would take something like this and say, probably back around here and call it, yeah, you know, it's not going to be decided. You know, you're not going to get this, and the Union's not going to have enough points to win, even if they get Sharps. However, I'm not absolutely certain of that, and I often wandered away from the games that we played with Mini saying, you know, I haven't committed this unit yet. What the hell? It's not over, man. Your units are not that far from... But, you know, we'd play for 3 hours, and most of the units got into it. If you held something in reserve for too long, you were kind of viewed as... well, you didn't want to play with that. You know? But, you know, I feel like there's more battle still happening, and I'd want to play it out. I'm not going to do it because I don't think there's much I can learn, and I am playing strictly within the rules here, sort of. No, I think, you know, there's some uninteresting kind of stuff to break that apart, and I'd have to make up a bunch of rules that I kind of hinted at to play that out. I don't see much point to it. So now comes the kind of ugly part of counting. Counting wouldn't be hard if I was keeping track of it on paper, but now it's going to be kind of ugly, and I'm probably going to have to use paper for it anyway, or a calculator or something, because the casualties are, you know, this running total that I have to look through. Well, a quick evaluation of the points, and I did this by pulling units off the map. Ah! I forgot the Confederates dead. I better look at them. That'll help, because otherwise this wasn't going to happen. Alright, after adding them in, here where my totals came out, the Confederates scored up 63 points, the Union scored up 81. If they're anywhere near each other, you know it's not going to be a Union victory, because the Union needs to gain a significant point advantage. So let's look at what we got. 81 minus 63 is... sounds like 18 to me. That's not going to do it. 18 victory points, though, is a Confederate marginal victory. Union marginal, I'd have needed to kill significantly more. We saw Sigel take heavy losses for his proportional size, but given that he had a whole, you know, half the Confederate force, one of the big divisions swinging down against him entirely, you could probably say he did his job. He drew off most of the force. Lyon's main command, on the other hand, largely didn't succeed. They pushed down to the riverfront, got the points for Sharp's house kind of luckily, because that was still very contested up until the end. But just, I think, took more losses than they could afford, you know, compared to what they did to the Confederates. Here we have a surprise attack. And honestly, both got 20 points for terrain holdings. Oh no, the Confederates only got 10 points for terrain holdings. So, you're talking about the Union caused slightly more casualties than the Confederates did. Confederates have much worse weapons, a lot more of well, the Union has almost no smoothbore muskets. The Confederates had lots of them. The Union has these Sharps carbines. The Confederate has nothing like that. So overall, I would have said this probably didn't succeed too well. And really it's within, I think the reasonable level of this. I just find it really, really hard for the Union to win this scenario, though. I've never, and maybe I'm just lousy at playing offense, which isn't shocking, but I have not been able to get a good showing by them yet. Anyway, I'll send this one up, come back with a review of the game and a little bit of the system.